Welcome to the Unforgettable Conversations podcast, where every week I introduce you to people from all walks of life, from experts in their fields to ordinary people who have had extraordinary lives. I'm your host, Sandy McKenna. My guest today is an entrepreneur, a professional on-air talent, a brand ambassador, journalist, media personality, a corporate advisor, and a leading industry speaker. Most recently, she is the author of Walk Your Way Calm. Our unforgettable conversation is about nature and its impact to human and planetary wellness. We take a deep dive into nature therapy and how you can bring the health benefits of nature into your everyday life. I think of her as the nature whisperer. She also happens to be one of my favorite people on the planet. She is Jennifer Walsh. Jennifer Walsh, so nice to hear your voice and have you here today.
Hello there, my friend. How are you?
So excited to have you. I have followed you for over a decade on social media. I think that's initially how we met.
I think so.
I think it was on Twitter back in the early days before there were, politicians and on Twitter. It was just normal folks.
It was just me and you on Twitter.
So you actually got to have conversations and you got to meet real people.
Yeah, so, it was nice back then. I love to see you, and I got to see you actually in real life.
Yes, it was wonderful. I have followed you and I have admired you for a long time. You're an entrepreneur, a trendsetter, and you're an inspiration. You do a lot of really amazing things. I had to talk to you and share you with the world because I just think what you're doing now especially is really important. But I want to go back to the beginning that you did with your parents. Oh my God, I was in tears. I fell in love with your parents. They are amazing people. That kind of led me to think, well, no wonder she's so wonderful. I mean, you have two sisters, you have a twin. One of those sisters is a twin. You have these amazing parents. And I can't imagine what it was like growing up, Jennifer, because there were a few complications in your family along the way. I mean, everything wasn't, perfect, but the grace that your family has is tremendous.
That is so, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, that in itself is a gift. My parents are such incredible people and they've been together now, it'll be 52 years, and they're beautiful. Their struggle, their honesty and their vulnerability about how tough it was to be young parents and give birth to myself and my twin sister in their 20s. When my twin sister was born, she wasn't able to get air at birth. So she became profoundly disabled since birth. So they thought she was okay for the first 2 years of her life. They knew she was kind of not sure. This is the early 70s where there's not a lot of science in terms of understanding like what would happen to the brain. So for 2 years, my parents thought she would be normal and whatever normal is, but that she would have more ability than she actually did. So she was born without enough oxygen to her brain, and she is profoundly disabled since birth. So she's been in a group home since we were 2. My parents raised myself, my twin, and my little sister, who's 7 years younger than I am, with almost at this, the same kind of love and desire for healthy children and just to be happy no matter where you might be. So I've got great parents. I feel like I'm the luckiest person on the planet to just have a great family unit. Never always easy, but I have a great family unit. They're wonderful. And they all live in Florida and I live in New York City. So I miss them dearly.
They exude love, and so do you. And I think that is such a wonderful trait to have. So you grow up and you go off to New York City. Well, first you started up your first business in Florida.
Yes, I'm born and raised in the Bronx, actually. So I'm a New Yorker, and I left New York when I was 18 to go to school in North Carolina. Came back to New York, went back to Florida. I started my first business in Florida in the late 90s. So I moved to Florida for a period of time where I thought I might just go for a visit and stay for a little while, but I wound up being there for 15 years. So I started my first company, Beauty Bar, and beautybar.com. The concept behind it and the idea started in 97, 98. And so I launched the business there in Florida. I sold it in 2010. And that's why I moved back to New York when I was in the middle of selling my company, because the company was buying me out was here in New York City. So that's when I came back.
What at such a young age gave you the courage to start a business?
That's a great question because I think it's like that idea of naivety is bliss. And I said, well, this is something I want to do. And I had never seen it done before. And I thought, I had this TV segment around beauty because I was a makeup artist at the time. Started Merrill Lynch, didn't like Merrill Lynch. It wasn't my spot to be in. I learned a lot, but I loved makeup artistry. My mom was a makeup artist. So my friend asked me to go on this TV segment because his actual guest fell through. And again, I apologize for the noise in the background because I am in New York City and there tends to be noise once in a while. His guest fell through and he said, I need you to come on air and talk about the makeup you're using on celebrities. And I said, oh my gosh, I can't go on TV. I do the makeup for people on TV. Long story short, that TV segment turned into a weekly segment. And that was in 1997, actually. No one was on air really at the time talking about makeup or skincare. So people then would call the studio and say, what was that woman talking about? What was that brand? And then they would send them to my home office, the questions, and people were getting frustrated because they couldn't find the products. There was no Sephora, there was no Ulta. Macy's and the big department stores were not selling these indie brands I was talking about, like Bobbi Brown, Stila Fresh, or Trish McEvoy, these up and coming new brands. So I said, wow. And this idea of like, if I could use my TV segment as the educational tool and my store, I could create a store that could be the sales channel. Wouldn't that be something interesting to kind of create this concept? And I did it. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know about retail. I went to school for business, but it's one of those things I thought, if I don't do it, someone else will. And that was kind of that, even though everyone told me it was the dumbest idea they'd ever heard, that no one would ever leave a department store for beauty. And no one will ever go to a store that's only selling independent brands. The more people said that was the dumbest idea, the more I had to do it. So I had to prove them wrong. It was a labor of love. And I learned as I went. I didn't have any mentors really to know what a store concept would be like. It was really a glorious time to try new things and experiment and learn as I went. And it was really fun. My parents helped when they could. My little sister helped. And it was a family effort in the beginning. Then it kind of grew big and it grew fast.
And then you sold it and you went back to New York. And then
Correct.
What did you do when you got to New York?
So I sold it here to a company called Quidsi, and Quidsi had diapers.com and soap.com. So they then bought Beauty Bar, and then Amazon bought all three of us at that time. So Amazon now owns beautybar.com. I then worked for a company overseas in Amsterdam called Rituals and helped them build their US infrastructure. So that was a great opportunity. I launched a few other brands, but in 2015, 2016, Facebook launched this Facebook Live idea and concept. And I said, oh, wouldn't it be fun to do, because I've been doing TV for 25 plus years at the time, or 20 plus years. I said, wouldn't it be fun to interview friends on walks in Central Park about what it meant to be a healthy leader? Because they were all CEOs or founders or creators. So I started this video series called Walk with Walsh. And every person I interviewed, everyone said, oh my gosh, this feels so good. I never get outside. And that's when this like lightning bolt came to me and said, what do you mean you don't get outside? Like, how do you not? Because I know these are all busy founders and creators. So I started studying what that meant. What do you mean? What is nature doing to us? Like, if I love it and they love it, but they're not going outside, they're spending the weekends maybe going outside. Why aren't people going outside? And that's when this Walk with Walsh really kind of came to be. And I went down this rabbit hole of studying nature and nature on our brain and what happens to us when we're disconnected from the natural world to when we are connected. It just opened this world of exploration and studies and research and data and helping people reconnect back to the natural world. And that's where I've been the past few years. And it's been absolutely fascinating. I'm excited every day to kind of talk about it and learn more.
I see you in Central Park via
Yes.
social media every day. But what kind of effect does nature have on us?
It's one of those things, Andrew, where we've been so disconnected from the natural world for so long. And we've been okay with that because that's the way we've grown up for the past, plus like since the industrial age, really, we've put up these walls between ourselves and nature, where we actually in DNA in our bodies, we grew through nature. We grew up as a part of nature in the natural world. So being completely isolated off from it, like being in New York City where I am right now, and I have to go out just so I can be reconnected, it makes such a huge change in our bodies, but most importantly, our brains. So when we do reconnect with the natural world, whether it be 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day, It can boost our immunity. It boosts creativity. It lessens depression and anxiety. It makes us feel more in touch with who we are. And it's almost like we've blocked that out for so long. And that's why people, when they go on vacation, they're going to the mountains or the beaches, or they're going to natural settings. So you can Google, I think they say Google paradise, and 2.8 billion images of nature will come up. It's really interesting because we do coincide, like the idea of paradise with nature and nature paradise, because that's where we evolved from. There are also so many great studies around children. If there is bird sound or bird song in a classroom, children will do better cognitively, and the test scores will be higher than without bird song in a classroom. It's fascinating, truly fascinating.
Wow. I had no idea about that. I think I'll do that when I'm working.
Yeah, I've been studying a lot about sound or impact of sound because they're building a building right next to me, and it's so distracting. Doctors and scientists say that's like these mini traumas to our bodies all day because we did not evolve to be listening to jackhammers all the time. But even the sound of silence, or for me going for a walk in Central Park, or for you to go for a walk somewhere that's a quiet park or a riverbed or even an ocean, the sounds are very therapeutic. The nature sounds very therapeutic to us because we, again, are from the space of nature. It's really interesting. Even if you look at a picture of nature for 40 seconds, it can actually calm your prefrontal cortex. So 40 seconds just looking at nature doesn't even have to be like outside your window. It could be just a photograph of it. It calms the brain.
That's amazing. I mean, that's astounding.
Yeah, the science is overwhelmingly beautiful and exciting because I see the opportunity and the possibility for what we can become versus what we've been doing the past 50, 60, 70 years is really going to change us. It has to, especially when we talk about where the planet is going for planetary health. We have to think about more nature-based solutions for our own well-being as well as the planet's well-being.
What are your suggestions when the weather's not so great? A lot of times, especially I live in the South, so it gets really hot and humid. What is it? The seasonal disorder?
Yes.
I have
seasonal depression.
Yes, I have that in the summer because it's so hot. You can't go outside. So I try to, you get up at the crack of dawn and you try to get out. What kind of advice do you have for people that when it's really, really hot out or really, really cold for you in the city?
The seasonal disorders are real and people really feel it. I remember living in Florida and how the heat is just so overwhelming. It's palpable and it's really hard to walk and to do it safely. Like you just said, you either go early in the morning, but it's still like 85 or 90 degrees out. So what is that humidity level and what's that doing for you? I think the most important part is to recognize that it's real, but also if it's impossible because your health, because of the fact that you can't due to health reasons, and it's not safe for you to go out in the extreme heat or an extreme cold, then don't do it. But also to find ways that might help you to look out a window or explore videos that will help, or even sounds. There are great things on Amazon, even Alexa, that I use. I listen to at night, the crackling fireplace, because I don't have a fireplace, but I know it calms me down. And it's one of my favorite sounds. I play it on my Alexa before I go to sleep at night. So these like little kind of tips of just infusing nature in the home can also help you be more centered. So listening to it on a device, looking at it out the window, or taking the moments indoors to like listen to the sounds of rain if it's pouring rain outside. I think it's just sitting in that silence and recognizing it is really hard. It's a practice, but it's really, really good for you if you can't go outside for the walk. In the winter, I always try to show, even here in New York City or wherever I might be, and it's always, especially when it's cold for people, I always say there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes. Walking in the rain there's releasing negative ions. So negative ions are these things that we inhale that are odorless, tasteless, and we can't see them. When they are activated within our own bodies, it helps release stress. It helps us release depression. So actually walking in the rain could be good for you. It's just a matter of like knowing the science and saying, oh, well, if I knew it was good for me, I should do it. Because also, Sandra, like we're so programmed by meteorologists saying to us, it's terrible outside today. Don't go outside. It's raining. And I don't say that across the board because our weather is really changing because of climate change. And the weather isn't always like, it's very dangerous because of the winds and the whipping rain and whatever. But when it's just a rainstorm, it's a gentle rain, there's no thunder and lightning. I really wish meteorologists would change the conversation. Just say, it's wet out there today. It's a beautiful day for a walk. Instead of saying, oh, it's terrible. It's terrible out. It's raining. It it makes me so incensed because we then pick up on that and we internally say, oh, yeah, we shouldn't go outside. The meteorologist said it's raining. I shouldn't go outside. I'm trying to share the knowledge that I've found out about why we need nature. So I would say just get outside whenever you can.
It's so funny that you say that. I grew up in New York too.
Yes.
And when I was a kid, if it would rain, whether it was summer, winter, it didn't matter. My mother would say, get outside. Rain makes you beautiful. Rain makes you beautiful.
I love it.
Don't shy away from that. In the winter, they just say, here, take your skates and go to the lake and go skating.
Yes.
And I'm surprised nobody would ever test it to make sure that the ice was solid enough. It was like, just go.
Okay, just go. That's how we grew up, right? That's exactly how it's like our parents always said, whatever you do to get out, just don't be in the house. I don't want you here. So we were able to just go out and explore and be a part of it instead of being so separate from it.
It was so freeing. And I wouldn't trade that kind of childhood for anything. And we walked everywhere. I mean, I walked miles. I was so fit that
I know.
just walking, just always walking. And I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah.
So
it changes us. Yeah. It's like, it's that awareness. And I'm happy to see a lot of my friends here in New York City left during the pandemic because they have small children. And they went to places that allow the kids to be outside more and just explore the trees and the waterscapes or whatever. So they're outside a lot more than they would have been if they stayed here in New York City. And I'm really happy for my dear friends that, although I miss them deeply, I really am very happy to see them in the outdoor spaces that are so very helpful for not only their own well-being, but of course, the growth of their children.
You have a podcast also, and you talk about not only nature, but you really do deep dives into this.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's so exciting. My dear friend Monica Olson, she was basically my producer for my Walk with Walsh video series. We couldn't do this series anymore because of lockdown. And she said, let's do this podcast called Biophilic Solutions. So it's all nature has the answers and they're all nature-based solutions. So what do we look at? What's happening in the world right now? And what is nature doing to provide answers for problems we might have, or how do we make cities ethical? And we talk about, birds dying in cities and in towns because of how we build our homes. And also how socioeconomic classes, how we look at where trees are planted and socioeconomic changes, like what can happen if we plant more trees in different neighborhoods. So it's interesting conversations, beautiful conversations, deep thoughts. I'm open to so many really, really incredible people that are doing great work around the world in terms of nature. So yeah, it's exciting. It's really exciting. It's always fun. I'm actually recording another one this afternoon.
And what will that be about?
This is actually about more nature. It's someone with the Appalachian Trail Club. So how are they getting more people, children to adults, to explore the outdoors? So I'm interested to see what the pandemic has been like for his work and to learn about what they're doing to teach why we need more nature. And also to protect the land. That's the biggest part of when we get more people outdoors, it's an opportunity for us to learn about our own neighborhood. And the more we learn about what's outside our door, the more we want to protect it. Mm-hmm. So I always say, we always talk about sustainability and how sustainability is so important right now. But in America, 93% of our time is spent indoors. So we have a huge disconnect from what the world is telling us to do, which is we need to learn more about sustainability, be more sustainable. Yet, how do we know about sustainability if we're not going outside? Mm-hmm. So I think literally the first step is to go outside and learn about your own backyard. And that way you care more. And the more you care, the more you want to do to protect it and be stewards of the land.
People can contact you and go on your walks.
Correct. Yes. I was leading lots of wellness walks in Central Park. Who'd have thought I would go from beauty and being in the store every day to leading wellness walks for individuals and hotel groups and corporations. But it really is just something I'm so thankful for it because I get to open people's eyes to a way to explore the outdoors without being fearful. I mean, Central Park is one of the most beautiful parks in the world. So I'm very lucky for that too. So I lead these walks that kind of show what the quiet and stillness can do for you. And just to lead very meditative walks to kind of touch things because we're so programmed not to touch. And especially during COVID, we're really programmed not to touch anything. But when we do that, we're also isolating ourselves and bringing opportunity for disease and illness. So when we touch things, our immune system gets boosted. There are certain trees, conifer trees, like pines and cedar trees, that release something called phytoncides. And phytoncides are these aerosols that are released by the tree that protect them from disease and illness. So it's like bathing. They're bathing in their aerosols. Well, when we're walking around the trees, I call it like a daily multivitamin. When we're walking around these cedar trees, we actually inhale these aerosols unknowingly. And when we inhale them, it activates our NK cells, which are natural killer cells. So our NK cells get activated and start boosting in our own bodies, which actually in turn ward off disease and illness within us. And it's a fascinating process. Dr. Lee in Japan found this out in the early 80s. And that's also why I coined the term forest bathing. So it's a process of being around the aerosols to help us ward off disease, just like the trees are.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
And another thing you have is so we can all get involved in doing this kind of thing, is you have a journal coming out.
I do. Yes, I'm so excited. It's coming out January 2022. So it's out. So yes, I'm thrilled. It's called Walk Your Way Calm. It's 101 different ways to walk your way calm. And that's all these different ways to walk. So you can read about it and then take the walk yourself. And then you can kind of journal about what your experience was like when you did that walk and where you were and how you felt. And it's just a nice journal to kind of take these walks for yourself and experience different ways to walk your way calm, especially the mental health crisis that we're going through right now. I'm really excited to be doing this with Prevention Magazine, actually. So they reached out so we could do this partnership together.
That's really exciting. The other thing that I find is I'm not really good at sitting and meditating like in the house. It makes me more anxious.
Me too.
To be able to sit and try to calm my mind. And I've tried. I mean, I've gone to like Deepak Chopra, big events and all this. I take yoga and I take Pilates, but to sit there and quiet my mind, it just goes into, overdrive. I'm like, okay. So I found on YouTube walking meditations. So I could walk and listen to a meditation, and it just kind of like what you do on your walks, where look at the trees and listen to the birds. And like you say, take your earbuds out. So I have one in so I can actually hear what's going on.
Yes, that's exactly the wellness walk. It's exactly a meditative walk. And it's nothing more than just putting yourself completely in the present. Because when I try and sit quietly in my apartment, all of a sudden I go off to, what didn't I do yesterday? What was my to-do list? And I'm just checking off all these different things. I'm exactly in the same boat you are, Sandra. Like the walking has been, because I'm a runner, so I love to run, but my mind's always going a million different places. But when I walk, it's a time to be fully, completely present, where I'm listening to, like, oh my gosh, that was just a hawk. I was walking in the park yesterday and I heard a new sound from a bird I had never heard before. So it's like you're fully in the moment. And it is absolutely one of the greatest gifts to all of a sudden be able to be in the moment and say, oh my gosh, look at those leaves are finally shifting. So these walks are really just, you hear your own steps, you listen to the rain, you're present, you're completely present. And that's a really hard position to be in. People, it's a practice to kind of, like you just said, like these meditative walks are a practice, but once you get the hang of it, you can't wait to do it every day, because you are just present and you feel so alive, because you're not in the past and you're not in the future. You're completely in this moment that's been given to you as this incredible gift to be wherever you might be. And you really feel this joy and gratitude in your heart to just be living in the moment that you're in. And there's nothing else that matters really in that moment. It's a beauty of seeing a cute dog walking by, or whatever it might be, a frog or a rainbow, or it doesn't have to be big. There are moments that are so beautiful that actually shift your brain to a place of gratitude and awe. When you witness awe or you experience awe in nature, it just, again, calms your brain, and allows you to just be in a space of gratitude, which we all need right now.
Well, I'm really excited. It's going to rain here today, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to walk in the rain. I'll send you a picture.
Yes, please do. I can't wait to see
like
it.
A drowned rat, but
that's okay.
I never walk in the rain, and you just reminded me it's something really great to do.
It really, and you're going to hear your own steps in the rain. I thank God for good shoes. I love my great walk. I try every shoe out. So I'm always like trying new shoes, especially in the puddles. I'm like, I wonder how deep I can go in this puddle with this shoe. It's so silly. I feel like a kid again, but it's really, I'm going back to my childlike roots of how much I loved exploring as a kid, and we all did. We all love to explore, but we've been so shut off from that or taught to stop. I'm happy to see that it's been resurrected in a way. And I'm hoping that it continues to be that way because we have to care more. And the walking outside in the rain is so liberating and it's so freeing. And the sounds you hear during the rain are so different than any other time. And the smell is also really interesting. So your senses are really getting activated when it rains.
And what would you recommend for somebody who hasn't done this and they want to, they're like, yeah, this sounds really like this is for me. How can they get started? What's a good way for someone to get started?
It's a great question. Simple, right? It's just even if you're in your own even nice neighborhood, you just want to put on your comfortable shoes. You don't have to wear anything crazy. Just wear something comfortable and just don't wear your earbuds. If you have a good canopy of trees around you, make sure you take your sunglasses off once in a while and just let your eyes absorb the real light, the real color. Your eyes need daylight for its own health. Keep your sunglasses on, though it's very, very sunny because you want to protect your eyes, but make sure you take your sunglasses off. But just explore, look around, see what you notice. Are the leaves changing? Are you smelling something new? What does the breeze feel like? Is it hot or is it cold? Do you feel a crispness in the air? I think once you start noticing and witnessing what's around you, you see things in a whole new light. It's almost like you have completely new glasses on to see this thing of the aliveness, the witnessing of life around you in the creatures and the plant life really makes you feel like you are a bigger part of the universe. And yet you are so small in this big universe and you just play a role in biodiversity and how we are all welcome. So I talk about the inclusivity of nature. We're all welcome. We just show up for it.
Oh, that's awesome. What has been one of your most unforgettable walks?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's so many different ones. I mean, to be honest, whenever I get to walk with my twin sister, Danielle, she's in a wheelchair. That's always very emotional for me. So when I get to push her, I don't get to see her very often because she lives in Florida and I'm in New York. So even when I get to push her in a wheelchair and we're walking along the side of a very busy road, it's very easy to get distracted, but I think it's poignant for me because it's so emotional that I'm being able to be with her and I know she'll never be able to walk. So I never take walking for granted because she can't and she'll never know what that's like. So every time I get to walk with her and push her wheelchair, those are always memorable for me. But there's so many times, Sandra, that I'm walking in different places where I'm just so overwhelmed with the beauty of the space. I walked in the Pyrenees Mountains a few years ago, and that was awe-inspiring and just beauty. Like every time you just looked around, it was just tears would come to your eyes because the beauty was so unparalleled. But even like walking in Central Park when the first snowfall comes, tears will come to my eyes. I get very emotional about it because there's such beauty in the simple moments. I've learned the past 5 or 6 years in this mindfulness walking is the practice of gratitude for the everyday. So there are many, many walks that are even with people that I don't even know if it's making an impact on them. They've written me notes and said, I knew I felt good, but now I know there's a reason why I felt good. And thank you for sharing these, walks with us. So little things like that are always nice. So I've got lots of walks I love. So I don't even know. I've got no good answer for you at all. That was no good answer.
Thank you so much for sharing this. You have inspired me more than you'll ever know. And when I come to New York, I always walk in Central Park, always. And my grandson used to live up on 110th Street in Spanish Harlem. And I would walk from Midtown and walk all the way up to his place. And I'd walk through the park. And it was like so amazing. Every time. Sometimes I'd have wrong shoes and end up with blisters, but
of course, I know it happens
everywhere. When I was a kid, we used to go to Central Park for field trips.
Right. Yeah, I did too. It was great.
And there's so many amazing places around Central Park.
Yeah. There are great parks. So, and this is happening. Actually, I know we'll wrap it up, but there are great parks that are popping up all over the country that more green spaces are really becoming the focal point for wellness hubs and that why communities need to come together and protect gardens and plant more trees. You see it more often across, and I'm studying a lot more about the country, who's doing what, where, and it's wonderful to see the impact of green spaces on the community and the well-being of the community. So they're popping up. They're little tiny parks, like little tiny, like postage stamp size parks are popping up, but they make a huge impact. Thank you for having these conversations too. I've always admired you and your work and your travels, and everything you've shared is always so positive and real and honest. And I've always admired you all these years. I'm so glad that we're still connected after all this time. And I'm so thankful and appreciative that you've asked me to come on, because I love what you're doing. And you've always had that inclination to have bigger conversations with people. So thank you for making me a part of it.
I don't know about you, but Jennifer has inspired me to get outside. You can find her walking in Central Park every day. You'll also find her snapping pics of nature everywhere she goes, so you don't want to miss her Instagram feed to see what landscapes are inspiring her on any given day. I'll put links in the show notes below, including one for her book, Walk Your Way Calm. Lord knows the world could use a little more calm.